Without any further ado, we will go into the sessions, and our first speaker is Ian Bryce, who will tell us something about the challenges we've received from psychics, the official challenges in which they seek to get our $20,000. Thanks very much.
Good, thanks very much, Barry. Well, firstly, perhaps I can give you a little outline on the background of the challenge. As you probably all remember, Dick Smith and James Randi got together back in 1981 and set up a water divining test involving an allotment of ground with pipes buried in the ground, and water could be switched between them. Those tests were very well organised and well publicised in the media, with two heavyweight people like that, of course. And there was a $200,000 reward available at that time for anyone who could successfully divine water. As you know, those tests were not successful. Following that publicity, the Australian Skeptics was created, and a number of interested people in Australia got together. And as you know, they've regularly published a magazine and researched a number of psychic claims, have actively investigated many of the claims which appeared in the media and which they heard of, and some of those carried through to the testing stage. And then around 1984 we decided to issue a formal challenge to psychics, because the stream of psychics which were coming to our attention was beginning to reduce a little, and we decided that this would be a printed set of rules by which the test would be done, and this would have the advantage that it could be easily distributed. It would be widely reported in the media, which has been very successful. There was a large amount of money involved. Figures like $100,000 were sure to attract a lot of interest. And it had some meat in it now. It was legally enforceable. Our patrons made a statement saying that the money was in fact available to anyone who could reliably demonstrate a psychic event. And furthermore, it enabled us in our presentations to state categorically that despite a very large amount of reward money available, the worldwide figure is around $500,000, no psychic had ever been able to come up with a single psychic event and demonstrate it reliably. So that throws some of the responsibility onto the psychics and not just onto the skeptics who investigate them as they can. This can be regarded as a more active approach. We didn't go so far as going to the psychics and saying either put your psychic event on show or shut up about it, but perhaps there was some intention of the message like that. So, how does our challenge work? The method has been based partly on the methods used by James Randi. We've gained a lot from his booklet, which describes methods for testing claimed psychics. Is that a bit louder? Can everyone hear me now? Okay. And these methods have been modified by our own experience in Australia in carrying out our own tests. The aim is to carry out the tests in a systematic, controlled and reliable manner. In other words, to carry out the tests in a way that will enable you to have confidence in the results. That's the sole aim. We've been criticised for the rules being too harsh, but their sole purpose is simply to make the results reliable and we can have confidence in them whichever way they work out. There are a number of conditions set out on the piece of paper which I'm sure most of you have seen. I'll just summarise them here. Firstly, the claimant should submit his or her claim in writing to the Australian Skeptics. You'll be surprised at the number of people who have rung up saying verbally that they did this and that claim and can they please have the money. There have been some like that. So rather we would like them to write it down in the proper letter stating dates, times, places and so forth. And in order to... There are a few matters of logistics here just to streamline the procedures. One is that we ask that they would get a reliable person such as a teacher, police officer, perhaps not a Queensland one, or public servant or so on, to witness this is not legally binding in any way. It just helps to sort out those who have just invented something in their mind to try and get around it. And then if the test's not in New South Wales, we would organise a preliminary test to be carried out in that state by the committee there, just because of the logistics involved. And if that was successful, then a proper test carried out by the National Committee could be organised. Now the protocol, or the method of carrying out the test and analysing the results, will be the result of discussion between us and the people claiming it, and we must agree on a protocol before we can proceed further. As you will appreciate, it's entirely meaningless to carry out some tests and you're not sure how long they're going to take and when they're going to end. And the end of the test, you've got a success rate that's a 60 out of 100 or something like that, and it's such as more than half I'm successful. And the skeptics say, oh yes, but it's not statistically significant unless it was 95. So therefore the threshold on which it is judged must be agreed by everyone beforehand. As far as costs go, we're not a profit organisation, so therefore the costs must of course be borne by the claimant, although in practice the members of the Skeptics carrying out the test have always given very generously of their time and resources to do so. And finally, whatever the result, Australian Skeptics require that the results be properly recorded and will be published in the Skeptic, whether they're favourable or not, because that helps to eliminate a sort of selection process where the psychic researcher can carry out many different tests, select those few that get an above chance result and publish only those. We require that the results be published whether they're favourable or not. Of course, a responsibility comes with this. Firstly, we're responsible to our two patrons, Dick Smith and Philip Adams, for the $10,000 that they've put up as the prize stands at the moment. And secondly, we're also responsible, of course, to the people submitting the tests. The last thing we would want to do would be to reject some phenomena and then find out that it was genuine. That would put us in a fairly embarrassing situation. So therefore, we enlist the help of consultants. There are many professional scientists and so forth among our members, and we freely consult with those on the proper ways of carrying out tests. Secondly, we must fully appreciate the risk of getting a positive result by chance. There's always a risk, of course, that if you toss a coin and that you will get 99 heads out of 100 shots. And you must fully appreciate the statistics involved. So we're fully aware that there is a small chance that a positive result can arise by chance. And thirdly, it hasn't happened yet, but it's conceivable that someone will come along and try to trick the Australian Skeptics out of their money. There was such a case of that in Britain, where James Randi went over and examined the apparatus they were using and found a couple of slight defects in the design which enabled them to bias the results. So therefore, to guard against the possibility of someone deliberately and maliciously trying to trick the Australian Skeptics out of the money, we enlist the help of quite a few magicians who are very capable of spotting such things. So I'll just briefly discuss the 14 challenges that we've had since we began carrying out the National Committee in Sydney 3 years ago. Of those 14 people who have written a properly documented claim in writing, we find there's a heavy preponderance of water diviners. There are 4 people who claim to be able to find underground water, and most of those produced documentation from a farmer or someone else saying they've successfully found water. One person claimed to be able to dowse for water from an aircraft, and another one claimed to be able to find water by divining on a map. That saves a lot of shoe leather, of course, if you can just sit down in the comfort of your home, lay out a map on the table and find out where the water is. Unfortunately, one of the applicants showed us some very good information. The CSIRO has 2 electromagnetic devices for finding water or mineral deposits underground. So he drew our attention to these, and we approached the CSIRO and obtained the documentation on these 2 instruments. And unfortunately, one of them is referred to as the CSIRO's new water and or salt diviner. So that's the most embarrassing choice of words there. We've had some people saying, there you are, the CSIRO knows how they can divine water. Why do you say that we don't? So that's been a bit of an embarrassment. Of course, we're fully aware of the electromagnetic properties of the CSIRO's instruments and how they work, and there's certainly no resemblance between that and how the diviners operate. Another applicant was able to divine minerals. Another applicant told us how, in a very large amount of detail, how he predicted the supernova would occur. And he said that he was visited by various intergalactic and paranormal bodies and informed of these facts, and he wrote about it to us sometime after the event and claimed that he'd in fact predicted it before the event. So we wrote back to him and said that if Commander Michael of the Star Fleet should favour him with any more predictions, he should perhaps drop a line to the Skeptics before the event this time. That really strengthens the case if he tells us about it beforehand. We had a lady who could read tea leaves. We asked her for supporting evidence for her tea leaf reading, and she sent us some documentation, the book she'd written, and a major advanced thesis. So I'll just show you here. Unfortunately, none of our scientists have yet been able to understand it, but we're working on that one. We have a practitioner of iridology who claims to be able to prove that there is in fact a connection between the iris of the eye and the organs of the body. We've got people who can claim to be able to carry out hands-on healing. We've got people who can carry out telekinesis and telepathy. We've got a spiritualist called Bill Backer from South Australia who was rather threatening in his manner and received some media attention for his claims to be able to uncover the murderer who murdered a lady in South Australia. Unfortunately, he's since fallen into the hands of the police. I'm not sure what's happening there, but I think we can probably close that file. We had a very versatile person who applied with paranormal claims, and on our form we asked them to identify the paranormal claim they're claiming. It says paranormal powers claims. Mark which ones: clairvoyance, telepathy, telekinesis, levitation, mediumship, astrology, other psychic predictions, psychic surgery, water or metal divining, ESP and all other. And as Barry mentioned before, he wrote all of the above. So you've got to give him some prizes for trying there. Finally, we had a claimant who claimed to be able to decipher the quatrains of Nostradamus, and that would point to the identity of the face on Mars. And so out of those 14, unfortunately none of them have progressed to the stage of testing. I'm not quite sure why that is, but perhaps our rules are doing their job, but we would certainly have liked to carry out some testing on them. However, there were 2 or 3 cases of testing which were carried out prior to that date in the most successful manner, and James Durand is going to tell us about those later. Finally, there was one case where we did carry out some testing, and that's where a group called Harmony Health Products gave us some little devices which they call the polarizer. There's one type you put on your water pipe and it purifies the water that comes out. Another type you clip on the terminal of your battery and it makes your car run better and less vibration and save petrol and all that. I think that followed on after the publicity that was given to Peter Brock's polarizer. These people approached us and asked us to carry out some testing to confirm that their devices worked and give it an endorsement. Well, it was with great relish that we in fact carried out very detailed testing on this device. We have a scientific report that studies in detail the many claims, all of them negative, I'm afraid, and that's being prepared for publication in a future Skeptic. Thanks very much.